Hi everyone! This is my review of the Omega Speedmaster Professional, reference 3573-5000. So, the first and only watch worn on the moon. Now that is a hell of a slogan, just not 100% true. We'll get to that later, but first let's start from the beginning. Omega launched the first Speedmaster, reference CK2915, in 1957 and named it following the convention they were already using for the Seamaster and Railmaster. This reference had a 39mm steel case with external steel tachymeter scale, whence the Speedmaster name, black dial with 3 sub-registers, domed plexiglass, and the broad arrow hands that gave it its nickname. The broad arrow housed caliber 321, a manual winding lateral clutch column wheel chronograph movement born in 1942 from an Omega Lemania joint project. Lemania at the time was in fact a subsidiary of Omega and supplied the caliber 2310 as an ébauche, a base, not just to Omega but also to others such as Breguet, Vacheron Constantin and Patek Philippe. In 1959, the CK2998 was released, with a black aluminum bezel, alpha hands and a 40mm case. The straight baton ends we still find in today's Speedmaster first came out in 1962 with the reference ST105002. In 1963, with reference ST105012, we got the familiar 42mm asymmetrical case with curved lugs. These were the years of the first manned space missions. In 1961, NASA's buyer bought a series of 6 chronographs from different manufacturers from Corrigan's watch shop in Houston, Texas. They tested all these watches so that they could give the astronauts the best available to withstand the difficult conditions of space. As we know, only the Speedmaster passed. It is curious that Omega learned about this only after they saw a photograph of the watch on the wrist of Ed White during his spacewalk in June 1965. It is only after that that the professional marking appeared on the dial of the new reference ST145012. In July 20 of 1969, the Speedy got its most representative nickname, Moonwatch. The references in production prior to this date are defined in fact as pre-moon. Not everyone knows that during the lunar landing, Neil Armstrong left his Speedmaster on the lunar model since the timing system on board wasn't working well. But when Buzz Aldrin joined him on the surface, horological history was made and we got the first watch worn on the moon. From that moment, on almost every Speedmaster caseback are engraved the words "the first watch worn on the moon" and "flight qualified by NASA for all manned space missions." In 1968, with reference 145022, Omega changed the movement and switched from the 321 to the less sophisticated and more economical 861, still produced by Lemania. The 863 was a more refined version destined to the transparent caseback versions. There have been several variations of the 861 during the years. The current iteration is the rhodium-plated 1861. On my watch, since it has a sapphire caseback, is encased the more refined 1863. Now, about my watch. This is not the reference currently in production, but the differences with the new one consist only of a richer packaging, the switch from pins to screws in the bracelet, and the much longer and complicated reference code. The case measures 42mm and is less than 14mm in thickness. It is asymmetrical with screw-down sapphire caseback and domed sapphire crystal, hence the nickname Sapphire Sandwich. So, the thing that strikes me the most about this watch is the fact that its design is so well balanced and clean that basically never changed in more than 50 years. Proportions are incredible, legibility is great, even in low light, and there's also just a hint of three-dimensionality given by the depth of the subdials. Above them, we have the classic setup with 13 minutes at 3, 12 hours at 6, and running seconds at 9. A detail about the dial. It is described as black, but it actually is grey, a dark shade of charcoal grey. The pushers are not of the screw-down type, and neither is the crown. This explains the renowned bad blood between the Speedy and water. Officially, it is rated for a 50 meters depth, but I personally would recommend to keep it as far as possible from water. As you can see, I decided to remove the bracelet and put on a vintage suede strap. Nothing wrong with the bracelet, but I believe this watch really gives its best on a strap like this. Since this wouldn't be a comprehensive review if I don't talk about the bracelet, here it is. It is a heavy and quite solid, non-tapered 20mm wide bracelet with pins and a double pusher deployant clasp. It is almost completely brushed here, except for these two little polished lines. The clasp is completely brushed, and that is a smart choice to reduce the amount of visible scratches. As I mentioned before, it has pins and not screws. Some people prefer it this way, others do not. I belong to the second group. In fact, to remove a link with pins is really annoying. Maybe they hold their position better, but I still don't think it's worth it. On the wrist, the Speedmaster wears maybe a couple of millimeters smaller than it is, which in my opinion is actually better. This is probably due to the shape of the lugs that tend to hug the wrist and to the external bezel combined with the domed sapphire crystal. This is most definitely not a flat watch, but thanks to its construction, it really doesn't feel too thick. It is immediately identifiable and yet, I believe, an understated piece perfect for a number of different occasions. To conclude, I think this watch is really a great piece of horological history, and since its retail price is not too high, at least compared to the competition, and its versatility is widely recognized, I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's approaching this world. I'm sure that legions of watch enthusiasts began their love affair with watches starting from this legendary model. Retail price here in Italy for the Sapphire Sandwich version is €5,200, while for the classic version with closed caseback and plexiglass it is €4,400. Oh, before I forget, about that slogan. Well, it has been confirmed that in 1971, David Scott, an astronaut on the Apollo 15 mission, wore a Bulova chronograph model 88510/01 during the third EVA after the crystal of his Speedmaster popped off on the previous extravehicular activity. So maybe not the only watch worn on the moon, but definitely the first and the most famous. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more reviews and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Bye!